Right, if you could choose any reptile to give birth to live young, what would it be and why?
Does it have to be a still existent reptile?
Ideally for the purposes of what I will be doing with the information, but for casual purposes, if you want to choose extinct.
I mean, look, my only real answer I have to this is extinct, and I want a T-Rex to give live birth because I love the thought of a T-Rex popping out of another T-Rex and just like the second it hits the floor being like, I'm here. just you know how like giraffes, they're born and like within seconds they're like, yeah, I got this, I'm moving around.
Yeah, they just get right back up. Yeah,
a tiny little T-Rex to just pop out and be like, yeah, here I am, let's devour.
That'd be brilliant. I like it'd be hell for the T-Rex midwives though, like, because they ain't got the arms to pull.
Like, I don't know what your purposes are, and I'm sorry this is unhelpful, but that is my answer.
Oh no, it's still valuable data. It can still we can still use that in the control, at least in the pre-trials. Conrad?
I think it would just be entertaining to watch snakes give live birth.
That would just be a rope making another rope
coming out of a rope. Yeah,
a rope coming out of a rope.
Yeah, it's like, some dude taking a shit with tapeworms.
That is a good answer.
With tapeworms. Excellent. Right, I'm going to send that to the boys at the lab. And I'm not being gendered there. They are all boys, aged between 12 and 15. It's very illegal. We are breaking so many labour laws at that lab.
Look, I don't want to stereotype either, but like that is the only people I can imagine working in this particular lab. I'm glad to hear that's the only people working in that lab. No one else should be in the snakes giving birth to snakes lab.
It's specifically why we set the lab up in the Midwest, because they are making it legal for children to work there.
Oh yeah. They're only getting more and more relaxed. Unlike the snakes that we will be procuring soon. Very valuable data indeed. People don't like to hear about these what they call cruel, unethical experiments, but
nobody wants to know how the sausage is made.
Right, or Cheerios in this case. This is how they're made, by the way, listeners. This is how Cheerios are made. By making animals that shouldn't give birth to live young, give birth to live young. And the afterbirth is dried out, desiccated, and then put in a box. And then distributed among various... It's not just Cheerios. Like, it's the entire cereal industry. It's all live young reptile afterbirth.
God, that'd be fucking funny.
That'd be great, wouldn't it?
Could you imagine like the complexity that would have to go into, and then it's discovered that this runoff, this is a good breakfast product. The kids will love it.
It's how we discover so many things. Penicillin discovered by that bit of dirty bread.
Viagra discovered because they were trying to make a heart medication, I believe.
There you are, like the best things in life. Cheerios, penicillin and Viagra. Those are the three best things as voted for in Forbes magazine. All the result of experiments and accidents within them. Or, just happy accidents, as Bob Ross would say. Bob Ross, of course, being the inventor of Viagra.
Also something that would be very entertaining.
Oh, absolutely.
Bob Ross discovering that he has an erection for more than 4 hours that he can't put down.
Oh, God, that would not be a happy little tree. Big and angry. Bob Ross is big, angry redwood. Oh, God, that's a DVD. Oh, God. I know someone that can do the voice, so I'm going to get my camcorder and pitch them a straight-to-DVD film, which we will send to the men at the lab.
Wonderful.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Laura. Hello, Conrad. How are you?
It's Podquisition.
Yes, we are here.
I'm good. I can talk about this now. I am spending this week recording an audiobook version of Gender Euphoria, which is wonderful. It's coming out, I think, the 28th of November. But it does mean my voice it's walking the line of survivability. I'm doing some very lengthy recording days in a booth somewhere. So that's how my week's doing.
Excellent. Yeah. I guess I'll also just front load with a bit of thingy. If you look up True Grit Wrestling on YouTube, they finally published the match between myself and Kid Bandit, the no disqualification match. Believed to be the first... I think it's the first match in the UK between trans femmes. It might be between two trans people, singles match, although that may be me and Helen Campbell. Either way, I'm in it. That's the important part. But certainly the first main event between trans wrestlers in the UK, and between non-binary as well. So, but I mean, that's less important than the fact that there's a barbed wire blast shark pokeballs full of thumbtacks, assault via boggling, I go through a table and a door. It's it's a good match when the commentators are laughing too hard to call the match, but they were freaking out because they've never seen anything like it. So that's at True Grit Wrestling on YouTube. It's the best match I've ever done. Like, it is a 27-minute riot. And our mutual friend Echo is there in that match. You can see them involved, see their betrayal as they and Amy held my arms wide open for Kid Bandit to kick my head off. And I really felt that one as well. So just so Echo knows that was the kick that hurt the most in the match. Not just my heart, but my actual head as well, love.
I can say one thing about this match, which is I knew the footage had gone live because all I've been seeing on TikTok this morning is multiple accounts reposting you getting beaten with a barbed wire wrapped blahage.
Yeah.
That's been doing numbers this morning.
And that has been the one that's been going round, yes. I'm looking at it right now. I still have the barbed wire blast shark. There were two of them, actually. We were going to duel, but we ended up with just the beatdown. So hell of a match. And the barbed wire blast shark is just like, it's not even the wildest thing that happens in the match. Like, it's the bit that blew up because, obviously, barbed wire blast shark. But the whole match, almost beginning to end, is full of very unique situations. Proud of that. I guess we could talk about video games because I do have, like I said, I got to be gone within the hour that we started because I've got a meeting with the Vampire Survivor folks. That's all I'm going to say. Nothing big and dramatic, but just having a bit of a chatette. So that's cool. Video games, they happened.
Yeah, they did. Would anyone mind if I jumped in with one first? Because I got a lot of thoughts to talk about.
Oh, please go right ahead.
I want to bring up if that's all right. So, I had the opportunity last week, and I can talk about it now, to go and check out at a preview event the PS5 Access Controller, PlayStation's new accessibility controller they're doing. I got to spend a pretty decent amount of time with it. I think 7 hours I spent across a batch of games. And I've spent the last week trying to put my thoughts together on this controller. For anyone who hasn't seen it, it is a circle of buttons with a joystick or analog stick sort of attached to the side of it. I'm trying to work out how to talk about this thing. So, one of these alone is not by itself necessarily a full replacement for a DualSense controller. In practice, a lot of people are going to end up picking up two of these, and I want to say that up front before I get into describing sort of how this controller setup works, because I think it's important to sort of acknowledge that reality of it. Accessibility controllers are not cheap, and this one is £80 for one of them, which means a pair's about £160, which is comparable to some other accessibility controllers, but it's still a thing worth noting. So each of these controllers, smaller than I thought they were from image renders. They're a little longer than a standard computer mouse, but as a circle, which meant that it was much more of a device that I could rest my hand on and have my thumb and 4 of my fingers on different buttons, my palm on a button, and my wrist sort of ready to hit a button, and my palm able to hit the big button in the center. And it was a surprisingly comfortable thing to rest my hand on. I don't know why I'd pictured it being much larger from the images that had been put out. That was everyone I spoke to's experience, was being surprised at the size of it. There is not enough buttons and inputs on this thing to fully replace a DualSense by itself. A DualSense controller has, off the top of my head, I think it's 16 buttons, and there's about 8 or 9 buttons per access controller, so a pair of these will basically replicate everything on a DualSense, and because they've each got an analog stick attached to them, your 2 analog sticks. Each of them also has 4 ports for putting in external peripherals. And this is sort of the biggest difference between this and like the Xbox Adaptive Controller, because the Xbox Adaptive Controller, or to a different extent the Hori Flex on the Nintendo Switch, are primarily designed to be hubs for external buttons and switches. They are very customizable with third-party peripherals, so that you can just plug in whatever bits you need, put them wherever you need them to be, and like create your own setup. The access controllers are clearly designed first and foremost to be standalone accessibility controllers that you sort of get them out the box and that's what they are, and you're not going to need anything else. For some people, holding a DualSense in one hand and using one of these access controllers will do. For some people, will be using 2 of them. And the sort of trade-off that it feels like they've made to sort of reinforce this idea of how they want it used is that while like the Xbox Adaptive Controller has, I think, 20 inputs for external peripherals, the PS5 Access Controllers have 4 ports on each for a total of 8, which considerably limits the ability to use it as a hub for external peripherals if that's the use case you have as a disabled gamer. Having played around with them, I do really like them. For my personal use case as someone that has slowly deteriorating coordination and hand pain issues that come and go, and intermittently needs to use, non-standard controllers, I found these really natural to get into a flow of using. There was not nearly as much of a adjustment period of getting into them as I expected there to be. There is very little guidance given on how to set these up, and I think that's deliberate. They don't want to steer you in a direction of how these are supposed to be set up. And over the course of a day, I found a rhythm that worked, like a setup that worked for most big 3D sort of action games I wanted to be playing. I took like half the buttons off the bottom half of the controller so I could sort of rest my hand in a more comfortable position, mapped a lot of my face buttons to my right hand and used my left hand for like triggers and bumpers and my left stick and stuff that was less commonly activated. And I was pretty confidently able to start like getting into 3D games, and it was a really nice experience. And I got on very well with it. Like, my personal use case, I really enjoy what this offers. As someone that doesn't use accessibility controllers frequently, that uses them intermittently, I like having a controller that I can just sort of set up and it keeps the sort of button mapping saved on the controller, and I don't have to worry about plugging external stuff into it. I just turn it on and it's ready and I start playing. That's a great fit for me. But it feels like there is no reason that this controller had to have such a limited number of external hubs. And I can see really clearly that this is going to limit who this is for. This controller, they started developing it in 2018, which was the year the Xbox Adaptive Controller was released. It seems pretty clear development started as a direct response to the Xbox Adaptive Controller's release, and I'd hoped that 5 years later, we would see a controller released that was just an objective step forward from the Xbox Adaptive Controller. And I think if a version of the PS5 Access Controller had been released that had enough hubs that someone who can't use the Access Controller's buttons itself could simply use it or a pair of them as a hub solution, like the Xbox Adaptive Controller, I think this would be an objective step forward. But it's not. It is a step sideways. For some people like me, it is going to be a better solution. For other people, it's just not going to work. And I think that PlayStation's like... It almost felt, when talking to PlayStation employees who'd been involved in the development of this thing, it almost felt like there was a little bit of arrogance in their design. And I say that in the politest way. And what I mean by that is, whenever I asked, like, what went into the decision to only have 4 external ports on each of these, the response was, well, we want this to be a controller that, you know, that is a standalone controller that you don't need external switches for. And I'm like, yes, but what about people who do? Like, it wouldn't have hurt to also accommodate them. And it really feels like a misstep. It feels like a design choice made to be different for the sake of differentiation, to say they did something different. And that is frustrating. And it's a shame, because I really like this controller in a lot of ways. There's a lot of things about it that I really hope get ported to the main system software for the PlayStation 5 and don't get left as unique things about the Access Controller. When you're setting the Access Controller up, you can do things like set one button press to do 2 button inputs at once, if you have trouble pressing 2 buttons at the same time for games that require that. For games that don't have the option to turn off button holds and turn them to toggles, you can just do that on a system level, so you press a button and it toggles a hold on and off. These are all really nice features that I hope we see come to DualSense. I hope they're not just for people buying this new accessibility controller. And in a similar vein, I was a little frustrated by some of the features this Access Controller has aren't available for DualSense users currently. Things like you can use 2 DualSense controllers right now as if they were one, in something similar to Xbox's co-pilot mode. But you can't reorient the position and the analog stick direction and remap one of those controllers separately from the other, if that's what you need, which is something Xbox offers. And I asked them about that, and their response was, well, there's one way to hold a DualSense controller, it's like this. And it just felt like very dismissive of... It feels like PlayStation has like a very clear image of, this is how you use the controllers we have, including this new one, this new accessibility one, this is how you're going to use it. That feels like it doesn't line up with the fact that accessibility needs really differ, and the best thing you can do for accessibility is go, I don't care if reorienting a DualSense isn't the official company position of how it's oriented, why not let people do it if it's going to help them? And that kind of pervaded my time with this Access Controller, because, like, as I say, I personally had a really positive experience with it, but I couldn't help notice things like PlayStation did not provide any external buttons or switches at the preview event. If you had not thought to bring your own 3.5mm external peripherals, you could not test this thing with external buttons and switches. That feels like it's giving this message of, that's not what this is for, when a lot of people kind of are going to need this to be what that does. So yeah, best way I can put it is a sidestep. For people like me, this is a really, really clean, efficient way to do an accessibility controller that's going to be really great for me. But I really wish that this just had a few more open ports on it, so that I could say, hey, if you don't have a console right now and are looking to buy a modern console, the PS5 has the best accessibility controller option available. I can't do that. I currently have to go, do you need it to be a hub, or are you okay with 2 sort of fixed position things? Which of those is a better solution for you? That's the console direction you should be going. So yeah, that was my big thing this week, was spending a lot of time trying to put together complicated thoughts about an accessibility controller that I'm excited about, but I'm kind of bummed out about this, like, some of the stuff surrounding it.
That's a shame. You can tell that the game industry is really trying. Like, they've made, the past couple of years, made a huge, and I think you've had no small amount of influence in that. I think you've been a big part of driving that. But it is clear that they don't entirely get it. They don't 100% get it, what it is people need and why.
Yeah. It is clear that, and I will say this in the broadest sense possible, the sense I have gotten from, and this is not talking specifically about this PlayStation event I just went to, I'm talking industry-wide, when I talk to the people who are ultimately responsible for deciding yes or no on accessibility features, they are not disabled people. They are people who get in disabled consultants and will listen to some things they say and some things they won't. And they won't always entirely understand on a conceptual level what is important. And the philosophy going on in some accessibility design, and this is certainly not the case everywhere, but there are certainly companies where it's like, I feel like you needed not just like consultants on the physical product, you needed big picture conversations about who does this include, who does this leave out, are you okay with disregarding these people's needs? And those kind of big conversations are interesting, but yeah, it's... I want to be really clear. This is going to make PS5 definitely more accessible. If you have the need for like external peripherals, there are 8 ports. If your needs are limited enough that the 8 ports is enough, then yeah, you can use this as a hub solution and it will do the job. It's just there is an edge case that exists that doesn't need to exist that frustrates me a little. Even as I look at it and go, I am personally excited to own this. Also, fun side note, I went in for an interview at that PlayStation thing, and someone from PlayStation in the room was like, oh, that's Laura, she makes really good videos about accessibility, and I got to be like, ha ha ha! Yeah, I mentioned one of my videos by name, I was like, yeah, I made that.
That is excellent.
So, yeah, I'm excited for this controller. I wish that I could like blanket say it's a step forward. Yeah, what about you, Steph? What you been playing this week?
I played a couple games. I guess the one I've spent the most time on is one called Elemental Survivors. Now, can you guess what type of game it is?
I wonder.
Title. Yeah, it is another one. It is another Vampire Survivors type game. One of the more straightforward takes on it. It's developed by a wife and wife team who are sort of big on the queer rep, big on trans rights. So I already had people sort of recommend it to me, and it is very cute. It's very cute. It is to role-playing games what Vampire Survivors was to Castlevania. So it takes a lot of RPG tropes and tries to sort of put them in to the basic survival type gameplay. A lot of characters and artwork heavily inspired by Final Fantasy and Chrono Cross or Chrono Trigger. The general differences here are you build a little party. You pick one character that's the main one, which you'll give all of the weaponry to and build up. But throughout a run, little towns will pop up, and when you go to town, it'll offer you, similar to how weapons are offered in these games, it'll offer you a choice of party members, and you can build a little party. Once you fully upgrade it, you can get 5 other party members that will give you passive bonuses, their own starting attack, and sort of stat upgrades. That's another difference, is every character has stats, very basic RPG ones, strength, vitality, magic, dex, that kind of thing. And the weapons have weapon scaling, like ability scaling. So if you have a character that's got high dex, you want to get weapons that have high dex. And that's basically the conceit. That's the twist they've got on it. Pretty good. It's in early access, and so far there's a ton of content, plays really nicely, certainly had me hooked enough to keep me going back. I've put many hours into it, and it's rock solid. Couple of things that they maybe want to look at is some weapons are so clearly miles ahead of others that, unlike something like the garlic in Vampire Survivors, where you may still have a use for it, it's not entirely useless. There are some weapons in here where I'm like, I see no cause to ever use this. And that's especially true with the evolutions, because of course the weapons can evolve, and some of the evolutions are so inferior to the maxed out unevolved weapon that there is no reason to choose it. And there's a couple of weapons like that. The most obvious is there's a magic lance. It's actually a trident, but they call it a magic lance. And that gives you just a big, long trident that sticks out ahead of you and faces whatever direction you're facing and deals constant contact damage on everything it touches. And once you've leveled it up and raised your max stat, it deals very respectable contact damage. The evolved version takes that away and instead randomly drops lances down onto the screen that deals area damage. And they're random, so you lose the control, and they're one-shot attacks, so you lose the consistent damage ticks. And it's just worse. There is no reason I have currently to trade in this fully controllable point and deal damage, constant damage attack for one that does random one-shot damage. There's no value in trading that up. There are some other situations where it's just a simple matter of damage output. There are quite a few weapons that are very obvious late-game damage dealers, and in my experience so far, way more that aren't. To the point where it is very easy to have a build that has multiple evolved weapons, and you just don't feel like you're dealing damage. Like, not enough to beat the enemies back, or even collect more XP, because unless you've invested in the radius in-game, because I'm not sure if there's a permanent passive for it, but if you've not picked up items or got the bear party member that increases your pickup radius, you've got to practically touch everything to pick it up. And you can end up in situations where you're not dealing enough damage to take anything out, and you can't upgrade the damage on the things you have because you can't get near the XP. So there's some balancing I think needs sorting out. It's led to some situations where there's one character that has a weapon that is so imprecise that I'm no word of a lie. I scored 1 kill in 3 minutes. And the rest of that is, as with these games, I'm just wandering around avoiding shit. And I think I only got that kill because a town spawned and I got another character to do it for me. Now, when I think the character is built so that when you finally get some XP, you get multiple levels at once. But...
oh, yeah.
While I understand the whole weak at first for a trade-off, like a trade-off in strength increase later, I think, again, the balancing's a bit off because it's not enjoyable to spend 3 minutes on that.
It makes me think of certain Vampire Survivors characters where you start with a weapon that by itself is basically not going to kill anything, like starting with the pentagram, that give you a level straight away so you can get a secondary thing to mitigate the fact that your primary does nothing.
Exactly.
Like, that feels like the sort of thing this is missing.
Yeah, and I think that's the game's biggest problem right now is there's just a bunch of balancing that needs to be done because what they have is very good. It's got lovely music, cute visuals, the gameplay itself is fucking rock solid, and I have had a lot of fun with it, but they do need to bring quite a few weapons up to par and deal with situations or mitigate situations where you're wandering around for minutes at a time feeling like you're doing nothing. I was in another situation where the kind of endgame build I had wasn't super strong, but I had 3 party members that I just unlocked, and the way you unlock stuff in this game is you have to max it out in a game to permanently keep it. For party members, you've got to fulfill certain conditions, such as have specific characters in your party on certain maps, and that will spawn a new character in town that you can then add to your party. And in order to permanently keep that character for use, to be playable, you then have to max that character out in that run. I had I ended up in a situation where I had 3 new party members that I had to max out, and the 20 minutes had already passed, and I was not anywhere near leveling up, like maxing any of them out. And it takes 6 levels to max them out in a run. I was in that situation where I was not dealing a great amount of damage and was struggling to pick anything up, because as soon as I did kill things, they were replaced by more enemies that got in the way of the XP. And it took 10 minutes. I managed to do it. I managed to get all 3. And I was assuming at one point, like, because I was taking big damage and working really hard to avoid it. But I was at a point where I was like, I might only be able to get 1 or 2 if I'm very good characters out of this and have to throw 1 away. I did get all 3, but it took 10 very excruciating minutes. And they were excruciating. So that's the kind of stuff this game needs to look at, is rebalancing stuff, because it is very good. It is a very good game. And when you pick the stuff that is already well balanced and already works well, happy days. Great time had. But there are some weapons where I see no cause to use them. And I don't know if it needs addressing, if it needs fixing, but there is an interesting sort of risk element to the fact that weapons are tied to stats. It's a really interesting idea, and I really like it. But last night I was in a situation where I had a character that was basically all strength, and the offerings I kept getting when I leveled up were magic. And you get a couple rerolls, but I ended up in a situation where, and it was fairly early on in the run, I ended up out of rerolls and nothing but magic-type weapons on a character that had a 1 in magic. Out of, I think starting is like anywhere between 1 and 15 or something. So like, it was the dumpiest of dump stats. So I just restarted the run, because I felt there was no point. If it wasn't strength or dex, there was no point putting it on this character. So that's something else they might need to look at, like maybe just skew it a bit so there's maybe an increased likelihood of characters getting suitable weapons. But I do understand that you don't want it to be 100%. You don't want it to be, if this is a strength character, they only ever get strength weapons. Because there might be a use for a weaker, a weapon they've got a weaker scaling with. But I think you want to kind of avoid situations where your players are thinking there's no point to this run anymore. But that's only happened the once. And it's something that's getting better and worse as I unlock new weapon types, because it just widens the pool. So it gives you more strength weapons to pick from, but then more potentially useless weapons as well. But early access, and really like shaping up really fucking well for it. So this is definitely one of them ones where I'm very hopeful, because they're still actively developing it, and what they have is pretty fucking high quality. And I think if they can look at those balancing issues, then you've got one of the ones that are like up there. Yeah.
Yeah. You played anything else this week? You got anything else you want to talk about? Because I know we got a time limit for your.
Yeah, I do have to be off in 20. I did play some Darktide today.
Yeah.
I didn't know it had come out. That's the Warhammer 40k equivalent to Vermintide, which was the Left 4 Dead Warhammer thing with Skaven. I've only played a bit so far. Played a couple goes of it. It's quite good. I've been enjoying it quite a bit. I think I'm going to invest a fair amount of time in it this week. It's very funny. That's one thing I noticed, was the characters aren't bespoke. Like, you make your own face and give them their own name. But there are a couple voice options, and they have very strong personalities. And they gave the Psyker one option, which is a very sort of mad scientist stereotype German accent. And it's so stupid, but enjoyable. And they have the different character classes and their different voices have in-game dialogue together to discuss stuff, and a lot of the banter is quite amusing. The gameplay itself, solid. I went a bit boring with my class. I just went with the veteran, which is just sort of guns and grenades and shit. But you can be a veteran, which is your sort of imperial soldier, psychers, which you're doing sort of your magic damage, zealots, which are melee, and then ogrins, which are your big sort of heavy tanks. And then you just basically fight a bunch of chaos shit, just cultists and Nurgle zombie things like throwing themselves at you. I like it a lot. I have not enjoyed how grindy a lot of stuff looks. Like, there are microtransactions which already sort of I find off-putting. But I just want a helmet, because all the character faces in the game are ugly and horrible. And I just want to wear a helmet with a faceplate on it. And I think like the cheapest with a faceplate is like 50,000 of this in-game currency, and after like 2 matches I think I had 2,000. That's just to get one thing, and I just feel like it's going to be fucking excruciating, and if anything's going to stop me wanting to play it as much as I feel like I'd like to, it'll be that. So early days, we'll have to have a look at it, but yeah, not happy about the grind, but the gameplay itself very fucking solid. And that is Darktide. Yeah. It's on Game Pass as well, by the way. So,
okay.
If it does pique one's interest, it is on there.
Well, then maybe we should play a couple rounds, because I
we should.
I want to play that, but I won't play it if I don't have someone to play it with.
Oh, for sure, I could be up for that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool.
What about you? You been playing anything this week, Conrad?
Well, I'm still into Stardew Valley. And I'm not the sort of person who, like, pays attention to update notes and shit like that. And it is an 8-year-old game. They had still been adding content to it, like actual big content, up to 4 years ago. So there's a bunch of shit in this that I didn't even know was in this, because I'd finished the main game content when it came out. There's a whole other fucking island in this game now that I didn't know about. Like, a whole fucking island with a whole other fucking farm. And like, currencies. And you can build a beach resort for the people in the... It is nuts how much shit is in this game. And I just saw a news thing. They're adding more multiplayer. Like, they are doubling the number of available players. You can have 8 people running around in this fucking thing at once, which is insane to me. And they're adding some more festivals, or who cares? But so there is so many hours of content in here on an already, like, massive game. When I heard they were increasing the multiplayer and adding some festivals, like 7 years after release, I don't understand. I don't understand. Why are they doing this? I'm grateful, and they've certainly, like, found a good brand, and maybe that's part of it too, to keep people invested in it. Because, like, they've got a board game, which I really want now, like, badly. Have you seen this?
No.
I'm aware it exists, but I haven't looked into it in much depth.
It's a cooperative board game, up to 4 players. You are trying to work together to keep Joja Corp out of the village.
Yay.
Yes, please, thank you. They're in their 3rd printing of this board game now.
I mean, yeah, you definitely answered your own question as to why they're keeping it up then.
Yeah.
If it's been selling, like, other shit.
Yeah, that's got to be it. But it's huge, and I will probably still be playing it another month from now because of everything that's here additionally. And really good. It's all really good and fun. So it's more of the same, but just slightly different. You've got to appease all of these parrots with golden walnuts. It's
sold.
Yeah. It's a neat bunch of extra content for an already fucking great game. So, yeah, that's what I've been playing, is just pretty much that and painting models.
I saw one of your streams doing that. It looked lovely.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, it's coming along. I am both rusty and yet doing a better job painting than I ever did when I was, younger and painting actively. So that's nice. Yeah. So that's been good. I'm working through my GWAR figurines, and because in 1999, like the two people who are most chiefly responsible for the creativity in GWAR, one of them had to leave, or the other one probably would have killed him. But the one who left had been the one involved in this miniatures war game based on GWAR. That is, like they figured out, hey, we should make skirmish level games because Warhammer's entirely too fucking complicated. And they found a publisher who was of similar mind and had been working on a similar thing, and they made a GWAR licensed game with all of the figures as bandmates. You can find the rules for it online, and what was nice about it is that because this was a small indie publication, they were like, fuck it, you're not going to buy our models. I mean, we'd like it if you did, and you should, but here are the rules to make any model function within our system. And in the context of a GWAR-based game, literally anything could be thrown into that mix and be fine. It would make thematic sense because nothing else in GWAR does. And so you can get the rules. The miniatures are like $40-$50 a piece.
Fucking hell.
It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. And so now I'm looking at these things that I'm painting that I've had for, 24 years, and thinking, gosh, if I paint these, I could sell them, but I couldn't bear to part with them because they're my GWAR miniatures.
Yeah, no, don't sell your GWAR minis. They're your GWAR minis.
And there are a few I don't have, and a couple that that have gotten lost that I will never see again. They did an alternate of Slimenstra Hyman where she is doing a Kali thing, with the multiple arms, and and it's gorgeous. I had it, and one of the pieces broke off of it, and I wound up throwing it away or losing it, and I'm so pissed because it was a beautiful model. And I probably could have fixed it, and I just didn't bother. And now I will never see its like again. I will probably never be able to get the GWAR or Cardinal Sin models, which Cardinal Sin is the robot leader of the Holy Warriors from Outer Space. It is a very very Catholic focused thing. It's pretty good. They need babies to fuel their war machines.
Of course they do.
Of course they do.
Of course.
Yeah, the mythos is that's the kind of lore I can get behind, where it's just so stupid. Who the fuck cares? But anyway, yeah. So that's what I'm doing. I'm painting GWAR minis and playing Stardew Valley. Anybody else?
Yeah. I mean, I dusted off the old Recidivus Malefactor, but just the hardware alone will take an hour to discuss, and each game itself, like Race to the Bottom, Numb the Pain, will be an entire that's a whole segment. So I'll have to push that off. I can say I had a go at the new Forza following your discussion on it last week. I've only ever played one other Forza game before this, and I think it was the last one before this new one. And I remember I didn't play it very much. I kept meaning to go back to it because I really quite enjoyed it. And compared to this one, this one seems so dull. Was the last one a sort of break from the norm?
I think I know what you've done here. There are two series of Forza games. There is Forza Motorsport, which is very dry racing on a racetrack. And there's Forza Horizon, which is open world silliness, race against a train, race a plane, drive a warthog.
So they're
now
two
you're in a Hot Wheels
totally
car.
different strains
They
of
are
game.
two very different strains.
Aha! Right.
Yes. So, what you want to be playing is Forza Horizon.
That must be the one I played before, because that had all sorts of fun shit and music and...
The most recent Forza Horizon was about a year and a half ago, I think.
Yeah.
Forza Horizon 5. That was the one that you can play Hot Wheels tracks in it, where you're in a little Hot Wheels car doing loop-de-loops. You can drive a warthog on a beach getting bombed at as a race. That's the one you're thinking of.
Because you see, my previous coverage of Forza has only ever been like the shit Microsoft pulls with microtransactions. Because like yourself, I'm not a sim racer kind of person. Forza Horizon I got when my Series X was fairly new, because I'd moved back to the UK where I'd managed to snag one. Downloaded it because it was on Game Pass. Played it a bit. Was like, this is quite fun. Then Forza Motorsport came out, and that was very different. So I didn't know a lot about... I only know the series history when it comes to its monetization. Not so much the gameplay. So I was wondering, was the one I played kind of like a Burnout Paradise thing, where they took a break and now they're back to normal? Or
honestly, Forza Horizon is the more... Like, if you picked up any random, like, newly released Forza game, it's probably a Forza Horizons. Like... We've had, like, they release more frequently than Forza Motorsport does. Forza Motorsport, you get maybe one of them per, like, console generation. Forza Motorsport is there, like, probably two, like, I would hazard a guess to say, like, end of next year there might be another Forza Horizons. Like, every couple of years they seem to do one.
Aha. Oh, I'll fucking just play Forza Horizon again then.
Sorry for not making it clear enough. This one was going to be you doing laps of a grey racetrack.
Oh yeah, no, I'm glad you told me, because I genuinely don't know a lot about Forza. Because like I only ever really heard about the motorsport stuff. So when I played Horizon, I was like, oh wow, no, this is quite cool. And then I spent this morning playing some of the new Forza, and I was like, okay, so I'm guessing there's a certain type of person that finds this fun, as they kind of carefully put the brake on to go around the corner to not skid out.
I said this a little last week, but like my feelings are, I can simultaneously be very, very glad that this game has the accessibility stuff it does going on, the assists it has for making it easier to not go off the track. This is the most I have ever gotten on well with sort of serious on-the-track sim racer, while still going, I'd rather be playing Horizons, though. Yeah. I'd rather be doing, like, there's a man on a motorbike, and I've got to get to the other side of town before him, but also, he's going to jump off his motorcycle and paraglide the last little way, and I've got to go off-road and race him.
Yeah. See, that's good. That's fun. And, no one's wrong if they like motorsport, but I don't get it.
It's not for me. I played it because I was excited about the accessibility stuff it was doing, and I got on better with it than I usually would, while still going, fundamentally, I'd rather be racing against, like, oh, you put a rocket ship on its side, and I've got to somehow get through a forest before it reaches somewhere. Yeah,
and it kind of left me sort of with a bit of a void, because I was looking forward to having, like, a bit of a time on a really nice-looking racing game. But as I was playing it, all I was thinking was, I want to just stop this and play the other one. So knowing that they're two very different series, which I didn't know, I thought they were kind of more connected than that.
No, like, I hadn't realised quite how disconnected they were. I didn't realise that, like, they're two separate teams within the developer. There is an entirely different group of people making that racing game, and the rarely shall the twain meet. So we probably share some high quality car renders, but that's about as far as it goes.
It's not great branding.
No,
it's not great branding.
And I had this conversation with someone, because I talked in my accessibility review of Forza Motorsport about the fact that I was a bit disappointed not to see Forza Horizon 5's British and American Sign Language interpreters come back. And someone was like, well, it's a different development team. And I was like, that might technically be correct, but I'll tell you what my brain thought, which was, that was a Forza game a year and a half ago, it had a cool accessibility setting. Now there's a new Forza game, it'll probably have the same things, because things move in a linear line.
Yeah.
Like, in my head, they're both Forza.
No, I literally looked for it this morning. I was like, where's the sign language? Not because I was going to use it, but because I remembered it and I like to look at the accessibility settings anyway.
It was one of the first things that my lovely wife Jane pointed out when I booted the game up. I don't think I can be blamed for going, you call them both Forza, in my brain, they're both Forza.
Yeah, and especially when it's like something like that, where it's more... It's not game mechanics or anything.
Yeah.
It's more the meta settings. The
Yeah.
You'd think you would expect that in the same named series, whether they're different teams or not. You would expect improvements to carry over.
That would be a place where they would communicate about some of those things as they're developing them. But
Yeah. So it's confusing branding because it's like. Sure, for a while, Call of Duty, by the way, Activision is an abuse farm, basically. You'd have your Modern Warfares and your Black Opses, and they were sort of separate series by different teams, but they would build off each other for as much as that series has ever built anything.
It does. It's the kind of situation where if someone with no other information tells you, I really like playing Forza games, I don't know whether I agree with them or not. Because, I don't know if you mean the fun ones or not.
See, I've only ever heard it in comparison to Gran Turismo in this respect, in that Forza is the slightly less technical and annoying racer than Gran Turismo is.
Yeah, that's actually what surprised me about Forza Horizons, which I almost avoided because I only ever knew Forza in that context, Conrad. In that, it's a simulator, it's very dry, so I only took Forza Horizons for a try because I had Game Pass and had nothing to do the night I downloaded it.
The messaging is not very clear in distinguishing the two of them.
Well, and it's one of those things too where it's not like FIFA or the NBA. They made Forza up. It's it's not some other existing organization where it would make sense to have this is the license, this is the subtitle, Yeah.
I
don't know, Horizons feels so sort of milquetoast. Like it doesn't.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, if it was Forza and then a more indicative name that suggested it was different.
Yeah.
But Forza Horizons really does sound like what you would call a sequel if you didn't want to use a number.
Yeah, I get what they're going for. You're driving off into the horizon. It's an open world game. Do your big explore. I get it. I don't think it's good branding.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. If it was, Horizon... That Forza, or call it Horizon. Call it Horizon, Forza or something. Like
Forza, the one where you race a train.
Yeah. Like, just give it a bit of a more exciting, unique title. Horizons just sounds like we didn't want to call it Forza 6 or something like that. But yeah.
Do you want to do your run-off?
Yes.
You gotta head off?
I'll do my run-off and then run off. As I said earlier, check out True Grit Wrestling on YouTube. Look up Commander Stephanie Sterling versus Kid Bandit in a no DQ match. The most amazing, the greatest match I've ever been part of, and one of the most amazing matches, and a genuine history maker, a real historical match in sort of trans and queer wrestling. Check that out. The Jimquisition.com. Over there we have a review up for El Paso Elsewhere, which we talked about last week. You can read that along with the Baldur's Gate 3 review that's up. My next wrestling date is October 10th. No, I keep saying that. I've said that for weeks, and it's the 11th now. October the 22nd is my next date. That's in Manchester. That's Sovereign Pro Wrestling, October 22nd. And then after that, October 28th is PCW. I'll be in Blackpool. That should be another no DQ match. So that should be good. Right. Thank you all for supporting. I will leave you in Laura and Conrad's capable hands while I go and do an meeting. Bye.
Bye.
What else have you played, Laura?
I played a few things, but I'm going to try and get through them quickly because we've got some news to do
there's
after
a lot
this.
of news.
I played a lovely game, only about 2.5 hours long, maybe tack another, 45 minutes to an hour on if you want to, be completionist about it. It's called A Tiny Sticker Tale.
Oh, I saw you playing this on your stream.
Yeah, this is a game in which you play a little anthropomorphic donkey who has, a little one-page sort of sticker sheet, and the gist is most things in the game world are stickers that you can peel up out of reality and keep them in your sort of limited space sticker book, and bigger things will take up more space on that page, to then sort of stick them back into the world on a different screen to solve problems. And it's a little bit of a Zelda-esque, a very light one, adventure of go explore this sort of tile-based world. You'll have very basic problems like, there's some rocks blocking my path. Cool, I've got to find someone who can block rocks. Okay, I found them. I peeled them up as a sticker. I'm not going to think too hard about the existential reality of putting this human being on my sticker sheet. Take him over to where the rocks are. Oh no, he's old. He can't see at night. I've got to find a way to get daylight from somewhere else into this little square of the map. And it's just a charming little game about, going around helping people with their problems and trying to make everyone have a nice little happy time. And there is a decent amount of off the beaten path side exploration stuff optionally. There is a sticker album that anytime you find a new sticker for the first time, it keeps a record of it. And I like that there is a setting where it's hey, look, do you just want to know where stickers you haven't found for your album are? We will put a little flashing thing on the map to tell you a square you can go to where there's something you haven't picked up yet.
Oh, that's nice.
To have recorded as a sticker. It makes being a completionist really nice. But yeah, it's 2.5 hours long. It is not overly complicated. It's just a very wholesome little time. I had a very chill evening with it. It was good for the soul. I also started playing Whisker Squadron Survival. It's a Star Fox Vampire Survivors.
Oh.
Which is an interesting genre. There is some aspects of how that functions that I didn't think about until I started playing that really do sort of change that Survivors format. First and foremost, you cannot go backwards, which means that if you shoot an enemy and kill it and it drops experience, you are constantly flying forward. If you don't get that experience, you can't go back for it. So that is a thing that you have to keep in mind while playing, is not just shooting, but pathfinding in a way to pick up that experience as you're going. There's some accessibility stuff for helping with a bit of aim assist, which I really appreciated. I've not put a huge amount of time into it, but so far you can't be wishy-washy about your build. You either are getting as many weapon types as possible, so you have you are doing damage just by sheer volume of things, or you're sticking with very few things and powering them up a lot. There isn't much wiggle room for, well, maybe I'll power a few things sort of halfway up and have I'll pick up a couple of extra things. You are either going widespread or very specialised, and you have to kind of pick a lane. But I'm having fun with it. It is not as brutal in the early sections of runs as something like Vampire Survivors. It's not quite as balanced for I got 4 minutes in on my first run and that's going to be the case for a few hours.
Right.
It's got much more of a, you're going to get in and do some reasonable length runs from the start. But yeah, I'm curious where the ceiling is on it, but I know there is a demo available for it, but I've been playing it and having a decent time. Last ones to quickly crack out. There is currently a demo on Steam for a game called Another Crab's Treasure, which is a Dark Souls game about you playing a hermit crab in a very colourful ocean, trying to purge the sea of microplastics.
Sold. I love that.
Right?
That's delightful.
Yeah, so first of all, it's really nice to have a colourful Souls game that isn't just grey and brown. They make a lot of fun use of the fact you are in the ocean for gameplay mechanics. Things like if you do a double jump and then hold, you sort of kick your little legs under you to sort of float in the air for a while. Well, in the water for a while because you're sort of paddling your legs. I appreciate that there is a pretty pared back stats selection. Your selection of stats to level up are basically 4 stats: damage, defense, health, and magic. I think that's the stats. It's basically that. There's also really nice accessibility stuff offered, and this is where a lot of people are talking about this game. It is definitive proof you can offer accessibility settings in a Souls game and it doesn't break the game. There are options for things like decrease enemy damage output, decrease enemy health, increase the parry window or the dodge rolls invincibility frame window, or the accessibility setting most people are talking about, which is simply called Give Krill a Gun. And it gives this little hermit crab a gun that's about 7 or 8 times the size of the hermit crab. And that gun will one-hit kill any enemy, no questions asked. So if you are just like, I am frustrated by the run back to this boss and I just want to, like, get to the boss, or this boss is just a roadblock and I am not having fun, I got within a pixel of killing it and I'm just really frustrated and want it done, give Krill a gun, shoot it. Done.
I love that.
Right. There's some other little nice twists they've got with this. Stuff like your armor and equipment system is just the trash you find in the ocean. Let's say you find a little glass, shot glass. That might have like very high defense against incoming damage, but be quite brittle because it's made of glass.
Right.
So it's only it will block stronger hits, but only a smaller number of those hits. None of this gear is meant to be permanent. It is designed to be, in the heat of battle, grab something else because this one's about to shatter, jump into something else, just sort of hopping between trash.
Like a hermit crab.
Like a hermit crab. The demo is pretty beefy. There is like a half-hour tutorial section and then an actual zone from the game as well that you can go play. It's a pretty substantial demo, and I really like what they're doing. I will leave the last one till next week, just because we got a lot of stuff to do today still, but next week I'm going to talk about Detective Pikachu Returns, because I have weird, fascinating thoughts about that game, but I'll come back to it next week. Have you played anything else this week, Conrad?
No, nothing at all.
Cool. Let's go through all of the stuff we got this week, because we got a bunch of it.
There is a lot.
Yeah, so let's start with Bungie. Bungie is currently being sued for retaliation and wrongful termination by a former HR manager. So this,
yikes!
Yeah,
that's like when HR turns on you. That is a bad sign.
Oh, it gets worse. I don't know if you know the story. It gets worse.
No, I haven't read it.
So IGN was the first ones to report on this. So Ingrid Alm, who was formerly Bungie's HR manager, filed a complaint in the state of Washington earlier this year. Alm alleges she was fired from Bungie after being asked to investigate a black employee who responded by saying he felt he was being racially targeted by his supervisor. Alm recommended Smith's supervisor receive diversity training. You know, a black employee has come to you and said, I'm being racially targeted.
Right.
The person who's allegedly done racial targeting should probably have some diversity training. She says her suggestion was met with hostility and denial. She was apparently told the supervisor had been there for a long time and was highly regarded, and her recommendation was denied. After that, Alm suggested terminating the employee who'd made the complaint. She says she disagreed on the grounds of racial bias. She claims that she sought advice from Bungie's equity and inclusion director, who was like, it would be too risky to fire them, and gave them a written warning instead. Alm says her own supervisor was extremely angry. It all goes on, but basically she's claiming she was sort of forced to leave the company after pressure because she stood up and went, hey, this employee is being racially targeted. And she started looking for a replacement job, and shortly after that, her email and computer access were cut off, no explanation given. She was eventually told that the company had accepted her resignation, despite her having neither resigned nor wanting to resign.
Oh, God.
She refused to sign a document confirming she had voluntarily resigned. Bungie denies all of these claims.
Like you would.
Yeah, but it's important to note, as IGN says, the studio offers no alternative account of Alm's events, only saying it lacks knowledge or information sufficient to form a belief as to the truth or falsity of the allegations.
Well, if anybody would have it,
yeah,
it's you. You've got it. It's not true. That's just a falsehood. You have the information. Now, it might be collective information spread across multiple people, but you have the information. So either you've done not even the most basic steps to investigate this issue, or you're lying. Those are the only two options, and neither one are good.
Yeah, because here's the thing. If you're not going to offer an alternative account, the only account is the HR manager went, hey, there's an allegation that this person did some racial shit. We should probably do something about that. And then someone higher up at Bungie was like, we accept your resignation that you didn't submit. Wow. Sign this to say it was voluntary. Like, they're not disputing or giving, like, a different version. They're not disputing that they got rid of her, and they're not giving an alternative version of events where they didn't, like, force her out without her choice and try and make her say it was voluntary. It feels like you would have, like, this would be the moment to go, nope, we fired her because of this. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, there's gonna be a jury trial about that early next year, but, fucking yikes.
Yeah. I mean, well, and this is, you're looking at this article that you brought in. It reminds us at the end that this woman came on 6 months after their HR had stepped down because of an IGN report about Bungie's boys club
This
culture.
was the boys club shit. Yeah.
Good to see things are changing for the better.
You know what? I will say this. Good to fucking see an HR manager that seemingly was willing to stand up for the employee and not the executives to the point of being pushed out.
There is an exception to prove every rule.
Yep. It is very rare that there is an exception to the rule that generally HR is there to protect the executives, not to protect you. I'm glad there was one. I'm sorry they were kicked.
They were there to protect the executives.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
If the executive had given the guy diversity training, if the fucking asshole manager had just accepted the diversity training,
if he'd have just sat through like a don't treat black people badly meeting for a couple of hours, probably.
Yes, they would have avoided a lawsuit. Now they might have two. Like, that's... Yeah, they were trying to protect the executives, and the executives chose not to listen. Yeah. Now, it's just coincidental in this case that it also served the best interests of the employee.
Yeah, that is fair. So let's move on from that to other fun. Let's talk about BioWare.
Oh boy.
So, there's been a couple of stories about BioWare happening. Where do we even start with this? Let's start with the fact that a bunch of Dragon Age staff are seeking further compensation after getting laid off and probably not being properly compensated for that. 50 staff were let go from BioWare back in August. Several veteran team members, were included in those cuts. Lots of people lost their jobs. Now, a group of 7 people, the average amount of time they'd been working at BioWare each was 14 years, have requested further compensation from the company, with a payout calculated to take their years of service into consideration. I'm reading the quote here. In light of the numerous recent industry layoffs and the fact that BioWare's NDAs prevent us from showing any of our recent work on Dragon Age Dreadwolf in our portfolios, we are very concerned about the difficulty many of us will have finding work as the holiday season approaches. While we remain supportive of the game we worked so hard on, and our colleagues continuing that work, we're struggling to understand why BioWare is shortchanging us in this challenging time. The group claims that their severance package amounts to unreasonably poor treatment, as they were significantly less than the 1 month of pay per year of service that the courts had previously granted other employees determined to have been terminated without cause. Basically, on average, these people have been there 14 years, I think was the average. That would be a little over a year of salary to terminate their contracts, to give them enough severance to find another permanent job in the games industry. We don't know what they were paid, but apparently the severance was considerably less than that.
Honor your fucking contracts.
Yeah. On that note, we've got more Dragon Age and layoff stories and poor treatment of workers surrounding layoffs. A bunch of QA staff unionized recently while working on Dragon Age Dreadwolf. All of the staff who formed that union have been laid off. This is according to a Polygon report that says that all 13 of those staff are no longer working there. They had a big fight around trying to form this union. A lot of pushback was around trying to get remote work kept in as something that would be made available. It doesn't seem like they were fired. They had a fixed-term contract, and BioWare did not renew any of those contracts for anyone who was in that union. And we can't say for certain that that's why they didn't do it, but an entire union formed, and then none of them had a job anymore. The group's union, the United Food and Commercial Workers Canada Union, has filed an employment standards complaint for offering minimal severance. It comes up again. This is a separate complaint about minimal severance for laid-off workers. So, cool. That's not particularly neat. That's pretty rough.
Yeah, it's it's unsurprising that the first ones to go would be the people who represented the largest threat to the way the company presently does business. We will continue to see these sorts of arrangements, and the industry has constructed itself to be very anti-organized labor. It was designed ground up with all of the lessons learned, and they are doing their damnedest to prevent labor from organizing within their industry. And I mean, it's not sustainable, I don't think, to continue to treat people like shit just from the experience drain alone. The training costs alone, the churn. If you continue to drive talented people out of this industry, you will not have that knowledge and experience to draw from, and the industry will stagnate. As you continue to take on the people who are willing to accept the low terms you're offering out of desperation, until they can't handle it anymore and they leave, and you just continue to drain out all of the human ability and talent and creativity that this medium is ostensibly built around. I think it's long-term a bad move to fire unionized labor.
Yeah.
But that's going to continue to happen.
Indeed. Talking about unions, though, we do have yet more video game unions forming.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of Polish developers, including members of CD Projekt Red, have unionized. This comes after a third round of layoffs at CD Projekt Red in the last 3 months. Basically, this is not specifically, as I've seen some people refer to it, as specifically a CD Projekt Red union. It is a union that's also formed with other Polish video game industry companies.
Good. It's harder for them to eliminate the unionized labor when the unionized labor is spread across many different companies.
Yeah. Reading some quotes from the union. We started talking about unionizing after the 2023 wave of layoffs, when 9% of Reds were let go. So that was around 9% of CD Projekt Red staff were let go, around 100 people. This event created a tremendous amount of stress and insecurity, affecting our mental health and leading to the creation of this union in response. Having a union means having more security, transparency, better protection, and a stronger voice in times of crisis. They are part of the wider nationwide union OZZIP. They are welcoming other game dev industry people to join them in the union. Yeah. Good. Cross-company solidarity, unionize, but find the power where you can.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's great to hear, and I wish them all the best.
Yeah. John Riccitello's not at Unity anymore.
I can't blame him. I wouldn't be either.
No. Unity has announced the departure of its CEO, John Riccitello. Now, the way that this has been put, it's not clear whether, officially whether he resigned or was pushed out, but a lot of backlash came at the company recently, and now he's going to retire. He will retire from all of his roles at the company. He's going to do so immediately. Who knows why it's happening, but we're going to find another CEO, and it's not going to be Riccitello.
I think Riccitello certainly during his tenure prior to coming to Unity, demonstrated very aggressive monetization approaches. But I don't think removing him is going to right the ship at Unity. There has been clearly some changes in the board since acquisitions, and the mindset on the board seems to be that that's the right way to go, and it won't just be enough for Riccitello to go out. I wouldn't even be surprised if Riccitello was like, maybe this is too far, judging by the stock sales ahead of time and now walking away from it in response. I would not be surprised to learn that he saw the writing on the wall and was making an exit strategy. This happens so quickly.
Possibly. I will say this. I feel like if Riccitello's departure had been announced as part of announcing the rollback of all the Unity shit, I think that would have done a better job of reassuring people stuff was changing than him quietly slinking out 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
I think that this timing is not the timing you use or the way you do it to go, Riccitello's leaving, everything's better, please come back.
Yeah.
So that definitely does paint a bit of a picture on that departure, but yeah. In other news, don't even worry about the sexual harassment allegations about Ubisoft anymore, Conrad. You don't have to worry about them anymore.
I don't have to worry about them.
No, you don't have to worry about them, because Ubisoft says it's on the right path now.
Oh, good. Oh, I'm so glad it's on the right path now.
Yeah. So this quote comes from the Games Industry HR Summit. Ubisoft's Chief People Officer, Anika Grant, said that the company is now on the right path, following, some changes they've made after the allegations. It's fine now. We're on the right track. We're on the right track now.
So you've replaced all of the executives in the company.
No.
Oh, well then. I like this. Progress has been made. We're on the right path. This sort of vague language to suggest that they've done things.
So here's the thing. To quote Anika Grant here, we had lost the confidence of our teams, admitting that HR was considered to be part of the problem. Yeah, all correct so far. This Eurogamer article then notes, the company made changes to its internal reporting system and code of conduct, and now has mandatory training for all employees yearly. And then the evidence is citing improving results on employee surveys, suggests that they're on the right path and progress has been made. Now, we don't know how much those survey results of employee satisfaction have improved. Let's say they were at 1% satisfaction and then they're now at 2%. That would be an improvement. That would say they're on the right path and progress has been made, I suppose. It doesn't say that things are good now. It says that by one internal self-reported metric, a number went up slightly, which means we are trending up.
It is less bad for somebody who is scared to tell you the truth about what's happening.
Well, yes, because this is the thing, is we've talked about the fact that, external companies that came in and did surveys that were not Ubisoft running them themselves, and what was, found during those about a year after the harassment stuff, was that sentiment was nothing has really changed. And a lot of frustration and going, if that didn't change anything, nothing's going to. And it seems like that might create a situation where fewer people speak up because nothing happens when you speak up. And the survey results are no longer going, everything needs to change, and going, why would I put that on my survey? Nothing's going to change. It feels like that could account for some of this. Yep. And it feels like there is a lack of transparency about, you say survey results have improved, be transparent. How much have they improved? Where is that bar at now? What percentage of your company feels okay working there now? Beyond this, we'll try and get through a couple of other quick ones. Disney's boss, Bob Iger, is apparently being pushed to acquire a major video game publisher, such as EA, according to a Bloomberg article. Apparently, his, second-in-command people are trying to get him to consider a bolder transformation of Disney from gaming licensee to gaming giant, which could be done by just buying up EA. That is a suggestion that has been made to Bob Iger.
They've tried this before, many times.
Yeah.
Why are we... look, I do think that's inevitable. Maybe not EA. They might buy Ubisoft.
Disney will continue to swallow up yet more companies and become the huge amalgam that is the entertainment industry.
Yes, they will continue to absorb more and more entertainment media companies. And they have to do it in some other places because there's only so many things that they can buy in film and television that they're going to need to branch out. So, yeah, look forward to that. I would not be at all surprised to see either EA or Ubisoft be swallowed up by... And Disney's one of the only ones that could do it.
My view of this is EA is already making licensed games of Disney properties, and that might make it appealing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Ubisoft clearly fucking wants to be bought by someone.
They want to be bought. They have a huge international thing. They have a film studio. They have strong brands.
They have the UK streaming rights to Call of Duty.
Well, there you go.
Appealing,
yeah. But no, Ubisoft has a lot. Like, Ubisoft could be a great company were it not for its management.
I wish it were easier for me to uncritically talk about Ubisoft stuff. Because as I routinely point out, they are one of 3 companies in the games industry making a real good effort on accessibility. And it's awkward to be I don't like what your executives are doing, but you are doing some really important stuff, and that's complicated.
Yeah.
Fix your shit. Get bought out by someone who kicks out all the shit people.
But nobody does that.
No, they don't. I know. One can dream.
Right.
And last up, we'll sort of finish here. By the end of this week, that Microsoft Activision Blizzard King deal might finally go through. It is contingent on the UK's CMA finally, signing last bit of paper, but they are, they've signalled they're likely to do so. By the end of this week, it might be done and out the way.
Well, congratulations, I guess. They won.
I mean, did they win, though? Because I'm about to tell you this next story, and it doesn't sound like Activision Blizzard King won at all.
Oh?
When I read you this next story. Activision Blizzard King staff were trapped in a meeting yesterday, hosted by Bobby Kotick and James Corden.
Oh, no. Oh, why would you do that?
Right?
No.
Why would you do that, indeed?
People, run. Shit, I thought things were bad at Ubisoft.
Yeah. So this was a town hall meeting for Activision Blizzard employees, for some reason co-hosted by Bobby Kotick, and I don't know why. James Corden
because James Corden doesn't have anything else to do now.
Because
his show's done, he's, just bumming around, gonna hang out with his pal Bobby K.
Hey, Activision Blizzard King, I better not see you lay off a single fucking member of staff if you have hired James Corden money. You didn't need to hire James Corden for a meeting. You could have saved that money and not laid people off,
I mean, that's probably a salary.
Right.
At least a QA salary.
Yeah. We could talk about what came up in the meeting. They implied Guitar Hero might be coming back and stuff like that. But the main thing that blows my mind about this is reading through the description of this meeting is that the picture that's painted of this, of James Corden having to pretend that he understands the corporate business of Activision Blizzard and is here just as an interested third party, because there's I'm gonna read a sentence here. When asked by James Corden how Activision will retain the company's culture while part of Microsoft, Kotick responded, and I'm like, how is there a world in which you make it seem natural that James Corden is right, Bobby, how are you going to maintain your company culture through this merger? I definitely know why I'm here.
I'm just imagining James Corden being so invested in company culture.
Right? That's the way
And the
it's
company
being
culture
presented.
of Activision in specific. Like, he
Right.
deeply cares.
Right? That's the reason I put this story on the docket, is I'm trying to, in any way, understand what that tone felt like in that moment. So, there you go.
Hey,
We did
Bobby,
it.
how are you going to retain the company culture in light of the Activision Blizzard King merger?
Because here's the thing, in my head, it's not James Corden, it's James Corden in his cat outfit from Cats is asking it. I don't know why that's how it is in my head. It's... He's being the fat cat that eats all the food.
I'm imagining him and Bobby Kotick doing carpool karaoke. And that's just like the casual chat break in between them doing like dirty deeds done dirt cheap.
So yeah, there we go. We freedom is reached. We did it.
Oh well, Laura, you are continuing to do it,
I am.
and the people want to see you do it.
Ooh. Well, I mean, if they want to.
Where can the people see you do it?
If they want to see me do it, they can see me do it at Laura K. Buzz, pretty much everywhere. Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Patreon, that's the one that pays the bills. Mastodon, Blue Sky, all the places. You can get Stories of Autistic Joy. It's releasing on October 19th. That is not the day this episode goes up, but next week's episode goes up the same day as that book goes live. It is just a book full of a bunch of different autistic people from around the world. You know, unique experiences of joy that are connected to being autistic. I am super proud of this book. I hope people check it out. November 28th, Gender Euphoria, a very similar book about trans stuff. It's going to be an audiobook. You can get it anywhere that audiobooks happen to be, including libraries. Libraries will have stock of it. You can just borrow it from a library, or you can pay for a copy and own a copy. All sorts of options will be available. The big one I will point people at is the day this episode goes live, I have a nearly half-hour-long video about the PS5 Access Controller going really in-depth on a lot of the nitty-gritty of it, and the interviews I had with PlayStation people, and like the big picture thoughts I have about that controller and how it fits into the ecosystem. Please go give that video a watch. I worked really hard on it. I'm super proud of it. Over on youtube.com/LauraKBuzz. What about you, Conrad?
Oh, well, you can find me at Conrad Zimmerman on Instagram and Blue Sky. You can hang out with me on Twitch, where I am painting the minis and generally just chilling. There's a lot of chill vibes there at twitch.tv/thatConradZimmerman. You can buy anti-capitalist propaganda and official Jimquisition merchandise at mercenarycreative.com. And everything that I do online gets supported through Patreon at patreon.com/fistshark. And you know who else has a Patreon?
Who?
James Stephanie Sterling does. That's patreon.com/Jimquisition. They mentioned their wrestling dates earlier, I think August 22nd and August 28th. But, you know, you'll just go back and re-listen to that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I think that does it for us, right?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.